Here with Master Guitarist Earl Carter. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I cannot complain, actually. And I guess, under the circumstances, pretty blessed, considering what we're dealing with these days.
Man, you have such an impressive resume of things that you've done musically. I was reading about you, and it said it all started because you were inspired by your older brother and began playing at the young age of 11. Uh,
Right.
is it easier to learn an instrument when you were young?
Yeah, I would say so because, you're like a sponge when you're young. You don't have a lot of stress as far as, having bills and obligations and so forth. So you can put a lot of time into it when you're younger, into practicing and so forth.
For sure. And I guessing the jazz fusion group Return to Forever was a big influence on you pursuing a career as a musician. How did they inspire you to take that journey?
Well, I saw them on a television show, and I was a small child at the time. And they were, that's for those who may not know who they are, it's a four-piece unit, jazz unit, Stanley Clark, Chicorea, Lenny White, Al Viola, guitar, bass, drums, and keys. Uh, and I was just blown away, to be honest with you. And was very particularly impressed with Stanley Clark, the bassist. Um, and he was very you know flashy and so forth. And it was cool. That was back in the days when we had the big afros, the bushes, and he was tall and he was wearing that bass out. And I was this little kid, and I said, you know what, I want to do that right there. That's what I want to do. Um, but my brother told me he was a guitarist, and he said, you know what? Why don't you play guitar instead? I said, I don't really want to play guitar. I want to play bass. He said, but here's the deal. If you learn how to play the bass, you won't know how to play the guitar. But if you learn how to play the guitar, you will know how to play the bass. So it's like a two for one. And it didn't make sense to me at the time, but I took his advice. He taught me a couple of chords on the guitar, and then I ended up sticking with it and then picking up the bass as well because he was right. It's actually the way the bass is set up. You take away the bottom two strings of the guitar, the bass, well, four-string bass anyway, and from there you just have to learn the different techniques of playing the instrument, but you'll have the general idea. So I thank him for that. And then he actually put it down to do other things. He was in the sports as I was as well, but he kind of focused on the sports more than the music, and I focused on the music more, and then the sports, track and field was my backup, so to speak. But I put a lot of time into learning. Yeah, he definitely inspired me, and so did Stanley Clark.
So, how did you get into the music industry? Like, what was like your big break? How would you?
So, so I was playing with the local teenager bands in the Washington D.C. Area, the D.C., Maryland, Virginia area, and we were doing a lot of clubs, shows with chaperones, because we were underage. But a couple of really good bands that I played with. Um, so when I turned up, just right out of high school, and I was taking college courses at community college and working for a corporate gig at the same time. And since I was one of the popular young guitarists in the area, I took a group named Trouble Funk gave me a shot, um, and they have some. Actually, a lot of their music has been sampled now. Um, they were signed with Sugar Hill Records, one of the first groups to sign with Sugar Hill, and they brought me in for a couple of their big gigs. It was one of the, you have the Coliseums in the different cities. This one was in Baltimore, and it was, what was it called? The Baltimore Arena, something like that. I can't remember the exact name. but you had Curtis Blow being backed by EU, who responsible for the hit record "The Butt." You had Roger and Zap, more bounce to the ounce. You had New Edition, they were teenagers as well. They were a little younger than me. I was 19, they were like 14. They had like Candy Girl and stuff like that. Um, and who else? Who else? I'm missing somebody. I can't remember who else, but oh, Johnny Gill. It was his first gig too. It was Johnny Gill's first big gig. It was my first big gig. It was thousands of people there. Um, and so they kind of gave me the first break, the group Trouble Funk. And like I mentioned, EU was there as well. With Curtis Blow, they had a collaboration called Party Time. And so since I was kind of getting a little more popular in that circle within that DMV area, EU was also from Washington area as well. Uh, I kind of hooked up with in another group with the drummer and keyboard player that was playing with them, and they pulled me in to that one. So I ended up doing a gig at the Capitol Center, which is where the back then the Bullets, now the Wizards, used to play in Maryland, Landover, Maryland. It was like probably the largest go-go concert ever. It was called Go-Go Live at the Capitol Center, and I would perform there with EU. And the next thing you know, a lot of other stuff started happening after that. That's where my start was, as far as the serious stuff.
Wow, that's amazing. And you mentioned, Sugar Hill Records that you're talking about at the beginning of hip hop.
Yes.
Because like a lot of people and stuff, everything like, hip hop wasn't what it was today. So like, as a musician and stuff, everything like, what was it like seeing that transition of like, hip hop being like, pretty much at the beginning an emerging art form?
Well, it was fascinating, when Rapper's Delight came out. All of us learned the words, to the song from the beginning to the end, because it was just something different and interesting. And then, like you mentioned, it's not the same now. So it was interesting to just watch where it went from that point all the way to where it is now. And I followed it because, a lot of these guys would call me to record guitar or bass on the in the studio sessions. So, and at one point, actually, I was doing some work at Daddy's house, Diddy's studio up in New York, off of time. It was around the corner from Times Square, where Biggie and those guys were. Biggie had just transitioned. It was a couple years after that when I was going up there in 1999. So a couple years after Biggie, Biggie Small was there. But so yeah, I'd play. They call me. They had that's when the studios were large. You had the mixing consoles were large. You had the SSL in one room and Neve in the other. And they called me back and forth playing guitar and bass tracks from the different studios. You couldn't do as much at home as you can now with the technology. So, if you wanted quality audio recording, then you'd want to be in a large studio like that. And let me see, I actually produced some kind of hip hop, crossover hip hop go-go songs for EU. And did I was doing a lot of recording and production. This was in the 90s, so I wasn't playing out as much then. I'd kind of taken a break from that, which is what I did a lot of in the 80s, was the performing, and then I did a lot of the behind the scenes stuff in the 90s, and then ended up doing some other things in the new millennium. That's pretty much it for the hip hop thing. I watched it transition from one point all the way up to where it is, and I was kind of in the background, kind of involved with a lot of that too. One of the guys in behind the scenes.
Man, it's incredible. You know, being able to work with Diddy. What would you say is some of the highlights of your career besides the things that you just talked about?
Well, let me correct that right quick. I never saw Diddy. He was never there. You know how he has the
Right.
ghostwriters. I never saw him ever. You know, until making the band. I said, "Oh, I was in that room right there. Oh, I played over there." You know, but I never saw him. Yeah, it was his guys that were doing the production and stuff. You
Right.
know. Then what were you asking? You know?
Oh, but what were some of the highlights of your career?
Oh wow! So, but as I mentioned, the Capitol Center one was the biggest go-go performance, and that was one of my first big gigs. Um, I want to say right after that, one of the guys that I was kind of mentoring in the jazz genre, smooth jazz genre, and we used to work in the studio together producing R&B songs and so forth. Actually, he was a producer, and I was working as his engineer. But prior to that, I had kind of mentored him. Um, I was probably the first. My home studio was probably the first studio he came to when he was a kid. So he actually got a deal, well, I want to, not a deal, but an investment um, with through Bob Johnson, who owned BET at the time. He gave him like a pretty nice investment. It was about 3 million to start his own label um, called Three Keys. So this guy's named Marcus Johnson, keyboard player, jazz pianist. So at that time, one of the things that that gave us the opportunity to do was to work as backing musicians and sidemen for a lot of the festivals that BET was putting on at that time. They had a television channel called Bet on Jazz, and they have festivals in different countries. We might play in I think one of the nicest one I did was in Bermuda. Did Bermuda Jazz Festival a couple times actually, and then the Ghana Jazz Festival. I got to play at the in Accra at the National Theater, and then at Cape Coast was actually we actually performed right outside of the slave castle on the stage outside um, on the water. So most of the stuff was televised as well. It's early 2000s, like 2003, 2004, and so forth. Um, those were some pretty nice opportunities that, you know, that was my first time going to Africa was in 2003 to do the Ghana Jazz Festival. And one of the interesting things that happened, if you want to hear a funny story, uh, I was in the house band. Let's see, we had a bunch of artists. We were back in can't remember everybody right now with so many of them, but and that was a long time on stage. It was scorching hot, and we were up there the whole time, backing up all the different artists. So you had Mike Phillips, Angela Bofield, uh, Freddie Jackson. We performed with him at the National Theater in Accra. Um, Marcus Johnson. There was a bunch of them, but long story short, Angela Bofield was the headliner, and she was the last act to come on, and we were already dead tired. We've been playing for like 6 hours straight, and as luck would have it, it was a windy day. Even though it was hot, it was windy. We were out right outside the ocean, and we were given the music like 2 days, literally 2 days before performance. So we didn't have any prep. You know how normally a musician has time to shed, work on the material, get some of it locked in their mind, and then they use their sheet music as a backup, you know, because or just as a template. Well, this was before. Now we put them on tablets. You know, all your music you can put them on a tablet, and it's nice and safe. You just pull it up, and you're good to go. No, this is sheet music on music stands. Everybody's music blew into the ocean by the time Angela Bofield came on. So So now we're like, we had no time to, and she had this song, something about Under the Moon or something. I forgot what it is, but it has like 2, 3, 4 time signatures. It's like a lot going on, and we had no time to prep for it. So long story short, we butchered her music, man. We went down in flames, and this is for national. I'm sorry, not even national. This is in Africa, and it's for a network that's playing around the world. So um, so the headliner's music was not seen on that, and she was so nice about it. She just would turn around, look around, but some like a diva would like maybe have an attitude. She was just as sweet as she wanted to be, and it was nothing we could do. So they couldn't air any of her stuff. They couldn't air it, So I just thought that was. It's funny now. It wasn't funny then, but it's funny now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man, that's an incredible story. 45 years playing guitar. Do you still enjoy touring after all these years?
Yeah, yes and no. It depends on the show, because I think one of the things I just said was like she was just as sweet as she wanted to be. She wasn't like a diva. There are some with that much, at one point I was doing 300 gigs a year between touring, playing spot dates here and there, performing as a front man in smooth jazz and then a side man for different, national and international artists. I was doing a lot of gigs for a lot of people, and sometimes I would have to learn a lot of music last minute, because let's say the guitar player called out last minute because they had a family emergency. Well, I'm one of those guys that they know I already know a lot of music. When if I don't, I can pick it up quickly and prepare quickly and so forth. But some of the artists are not as friendly as Andrew Bofield. Some of them, they're like, if you don't play every single note, note for note, perfectly, then they're gonna have a hissy fit or an attitude. So that's not fun. But I still enjoy the gigs that aren't stressful. But and having played, like you said, for 45 years, I can do without the stress right now. So that's why I said, well, let me. And this is the perfect time. I mean, I'm not saying there's anything perfect about a pandemic, but this is a opportune time for me to focus on teaching more and as opposed to this touring and so forth, because I can't tour right now anyway. So now this is an opportunity for me to give back and teach the young folks a little of what I've learned over the years and experience. So that's where I'm at with it right now. So yes and no as far as the touring goes. It just depends on whether it's fun or not. If it's fun, I'm all in. If it's stressful, I can do without it right now.
Where can people reach out to inquire about learning how to play the guitar from you?
So they can either go to earlteachesguitar.com or earlcartermusic.com. Either one is going to send you to my main website. So there's a page on there that just focuses on my methods of teaching guitar lessons and so forth. There's another one as far as my audio recording and production, because I also still, what I was telling you I was doing at Daddy's house up in New York City. I can still do that at home in my own studio, and then just transfer the files back and forth. As a matter of fact, I recorded I didn't mention this, I spent a lot of time in Ethiopia, in East Africa, a lot of time, pretty much lived there. And so two of my jazz CDs I recorded over in my hotel room, and I'd send the files over to my guys over here so they can add their parts. So with the technology, you can do a lot of recording and production via internet. But yeah, they can learn about the teaching at earlcartermusic.com as far as the specifics. And then I have my phone number and my email address there as well. So that's how. and I usually like for an interview like this, I won't mention it, my phone number or email, because I want to see who's really serious, you know. So if they're serious, they go to the website and they'll they'll do some research, you know, Google me or say, see, let me see if he's legit or is he just talking, you know. But to kind of screen the people that aren't really serious, I'll just say, just go to earlcartermusic.com.
Man, that's incredible, Earl. I appreciate you for taking the time and sharing your journey with me. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me, Ryan. I appreciate it.
Of course, have a good day.
All right, you do the same. Take care now.